What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for tuning in. I want to give a shout out to all the subscribers. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Please hit that bell to be notified whenever a new video comes out. So in this episode, I'm going to switch it up a little bit. We're going to take a look at how much of a difference maker Deshaun Watson is for the Houston Texans, and why I think, with him healthy next season in year 2, the Texans are a definite playoff contender. In 2017, Deshaun Watson played 7 games, starting 6, and was 3-3 as a starter. But in those 3 losses, he went head-to-head against Tom Brady and the Patriots, Alex Smith and the Chiefs, and Russell Wilson in that Seattle defense. And he took it to them. All 3 of those losses the Texans could have won, and they probably do win if this is Watson in year 2 or year 3. Because in those losing efforts, he gave those guys a run for their money. And in the 3 games the Texans did win under Watson, it was against very beatable teams, and he dominated in a way that exceeded expectations. And he was able to do all of this with literally the worst offensive line in the league. The Texans' O-line allowed the most pressures of any team in the league by far, and they gave up 54 sacks, second to last in the league. It was so bad that the only reason we saw Watson so early in that Week 1 game against Jacksonville was because Tom Savage was sacked 6 times before the end of the second quarter, 4 times by the same guy, Calais Campbell. He also gave up 2 fumbles, one being for a touchdown for the opposing team. Deshaun Watson comes in the second half, and it literally looks like a different team. The Texans had only 4 first downs in the entire first half. Deshaun Watson gets 5 first downs on the opening drive in the third quarter, and it ends with a touchdown on his first career drive. And again in Week 3, he goes head-to-head with Tom Brady, nearly winning that game. Next week, he throws 4 touchdowns in a blowout against the Titans. He throws 5 touchdowns and no picks against Andy Reid's Chiefs. And in his last game of the season, Week 8 against the Seahawks, one of my favorite games of 2017. I swear I must have watched this game at least a dozen times. Russell Wilson and his protege trading blows back and forth the entire game. It was a slugfest. And Watson, a rookie, goes into that hostile stadium with that hostile crowd, with that Seattle defense, and almost does enough to steal that game. Amazing.
Slides away again, throws for a touchdown. Caught by Miller, 2-yard strike. Texans on top. Not a lot of quarterbacks can make that type of play.
And yes, Deshaun Watson throws 3 interceptions. But if you take a look at the first half, he is owning Richard Sherman in that secondary. And yes, he did turn the ball over a lot. But if it wasn't for that horrendous offensive line and their inability to help convert the third down to run out the clock, they would have won that game. I mean, they led for most of the game despite the turnovers. And that performance by Watson will be the only time a quarterback in the Super Bowl era throws for over 400 yards, rushes for over 50 yards, and have 4 touchdowns in one game. And when you look at some of the negative plays throughout the season by Deshaun Watson, you see common rookie mistakes. It's poor timing. It's trying to make a play instead of throwing the ball away. Similar mistakes to what we saw Carson Wentz make in 2016. Now, Wentz was able to clean that up in 2017, and you saw a guy that looked unstoppable. So the offseason for the Texans. Well, they couldn't really address the offensive line in the draft, being that they traded away their first and second round picks, getting Deshaun Watson and getting rid of Osweiler. So in the free agency, they bring in a few subpar castaways from other teams, but no names that at least on paper is going to significantly improve this O-line. I guess you just have to put your trust in Deshaun Watson's playmaking ability and hope for the best. Now, as far as defense, the secondary seemed to be the apparent weakness in 2017. But with the injuries up front and an offense who was turning the ball over and punting on almost every drive for most of the season, it's really hard to judge this group by the numbers. I think if we can have Whitney Merciless, J.J. Watt, and Jadeveon Clowney in all 16 games, and an offense that can actually stay on the field and score points, I think you see a secondary step up and look like the secondary in 2016, when they were one of the best in the conference. Especially with this new addition of veteran Tyrann Mathieu. He could be a huge piece to turning this pass defense around. Floor for the Texans. A turnstile for an offensive line is going to lead to sacks and pressures, which usually leads to interceptions and turnovers, and a beat-up quarterback who is worn down by December. You take that into account with a defense that is more than likely going to lose one or two of their big names for the season. You got a team solely reliant on Deshaun Watson to win games for them. And I think he can steal at least 5. Ceiling. If these new offensive linemen coming in makes this O-line just bad and not horrendous, that in of itself is a major upgrade. If Tyrann Mathieu does for the Texans what Malcolm Jenkins late in his career did for the Eagles, and that front 7 is healthy all season, I think we have a playoff teams on our hand. Now the AFC is going to be a very tough conference. The AFC South is going to be a very tough division. So the most I can see them winning if everything goes right is 10 games. But I think 10 wins gets you in the playoffs, and they could possibly make a playoff run. Thank you all for watching. Please subscribe. Please hit the bell to be notified whenever a new video comes out. And once again, thank you always for watching and for your support. See you on the other side.